Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is 5 o'clock today on Wednesday, the 19th of March. So we shall begin this month's meeting of the Cabinet. Are there any apologies for absence? We've got Councillor Anand, apologies. Don't believe we've got anybody else. And of course, we have Councillor Shaw attending online. There are no urgent matters. Matters to be considered in private. There aren't any, but as ever, please, if you intend on referring to items in the confidential appendices of any of the Cabinet reports, please indicate before doing so. If you do intend on referring to those items, then we would have to stop the video feed and clear the gallery. So if you can avoid doing that, that would be wonderful. Are there any declarations of interest? I see no indications. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are Cabinet happy to approve the minutes? Thank you very much. So agreed. No appointments to subcommittees or to outside bodies. So we'll move to number 7, the Council Plan Performance Report year-end 2024-2025. As ever, this report gives Cabinet an opportunity to update on the progress towards implementing the Council's annual set of targets that are contained in our performance report. It's a really key document that sets out what our achievements have been in the past year, and of course also works to have us focus on the things where we might need to make improvements to. Not just in terms of the Council plan, but also some of our numerical targets, the things that we like to consider give people confidence that we are fit to practice as an organisation. So as ever, I'm going to invite each Cabinet member in turn to speak very briefly on each of the portfolio areas, and then I'm going to move to questions from which I know there are some. We don't have Councillor Anand with us today as she is away, so we'll go first to Councillor Driscoll, Climate Action.
Thank you. So the report goes through a range of details that we're actually achieving really well on, including our tree planting, retrofitting homes, well exceeded targets there. We've got a strong progress in achieving our aims for improving walking and cycling. So there's a strong set of performances there. Just to acknowledge that our recycling is still at a very good rate, one of the highest in London, but marginally just a shave off what we're aiming to be. Fly tipping remains a concern, but we've got work in train, which is in its final stages before going public, about addressing that in both the enforcement side of it and also an education side of it. So that will pick up on the area in red on the fly tipping clearance. So that work is very much in hand and will go public shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Healthy Equal Lives, Councillor Newstub.
Thank you, Chair. I'm particularly proud to look at some of our market management, which is really, really strong. Very high number of our care homes and care providers good or outstanding. We're significantly tracking under our target for admissions into residential care, and the other side of that is we are seeing significant increases on our targets to support vulnerable residents to stay in their own homes. Obviously, they're very connected, but we know that that is a significantly better outcome for our residents. We launched our Race Equality Commission impact report in December, and I would really love to point to the work that we've been doing around reablement, which we are particularly proud of. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A fair start, Councillor Blacker.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, fantastically, we opened the YAC this January, completing one of our manifesto commitments, £2 million investment, which is fantastic news and should help us boost the numbers accessing our youth services. One of the indicators that's not so good is the percentage of Black Caribbean pupils achieving levels 5 and above in English and Maths at Key Stage 4. Councillor Newstub and I were actually at the Citizens Tribunal Education Subgroup last week to discuss some of the progress there. There is a lot of work going on to increase that, and some very good positive signs in years 7 to 9. So we will hopefully make further progress on this in the future.
Thank you. Decent Living Incomes, Councillor Nagpal.
Thanks, Chair. I'm really proud that we launched our Creative Sector Forum in Q3. This is one of the growth sectors highlighted in our Jobs and Skills strategy. The launch was a huge success, and it's really exciting that this forum will attract new and exciting opportunities in the creative sector for Ealing residents. I'm also delighted that 88% of our food businesses are compliant with food legislation against a target of 85%. This is testament to the hard work of our food safety team, who work tirelessly with food businesses in the borough and help to educate them about food safety. One of the things I did want to highlight as that's in red is the average days taken to process new benefit claims. The year-to-date average is 25 against a target of 28. However, this is much closer to our target of 24, and our standalone performance was 25 days. There has been a significant number of new claims for housing benefits relating to temporary accommodation. And the improvement that we've seen, even though we're not quite at our target, is due to using automation and artificial intelligence so that our team can focus on more complex decision making. And I'll quickly just mention that our officers were at number 10 Downing Street recently, speaking to the Prime Minister about how Ealing is embracing technology and artificial intelligence, and that is one example.
Okay, thank you very much. Inclusive Economy, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. I think if I pick out the 3 indicators around customer service, which is an area that quite often over the years is quite a bad press from us, but clear improvements and green indicators around our answering of telephone calls, our ability to resolve calls at problems at first contact, and customer satisfaction with their contact, all ahead of our target, and I think that all important to be congratulated. I'll make a reference to freedom of information requests. As often say, the target on here is 100%, which is almost impossible to meet. So it's almost for any council, it's almost a self-inflicted amber or red, because it's very hard to achieve green. But we have introduced a new searchable facility so that people who would like to understand something that's happened can ascertain whether or not that information has already been put in the public domain, which I think takes a lot of the unnecessary work away from our officers and will help them respond more quickly to the queries that have not been answered before and get us nearer to the 100%.
Thank you very much. Safe and genuine affordable homes, Councillor Brett.
Thank you, Chair. So firstly, I'd like to talk about our £150 million investment, which in terms of homelessness and temporary accommodation. So we're starting to see that investment paying off. And we are slowly but surely seeing the reduction of people in hotels and bed and breakfasts. We've still got a way to go with that, but it is a work in progress, and it's good to see that there are some positive movement in that area. In terms of our resident engagement, we've had significant improvement with that. And we've also with our resident engagement board, and we've got a significant proportion of different representatives that have come forward as a resident's voice, and that sits really nicely in terms of what we want to achieve with our residents' voices first. So really positive news on that side of things. And then just a little bit of news which probably doesn't reflect slightly in this report, but we have managed to, in terms of rough sleeping, we have had some good news in terms of reducing the number of rough sleeping in comparison to this time last year. Again, obviously, we would love to not have any rough sleepers, but we have the team to work really hard internally and with our external partners to start reducing this down. And I think that that's quite a positive story. Thank you.
Okay, good growth in new housing, Councillor Manro.
Thank you, Chair. So our Good for Ealing Inward and Westward brand is going from strength to strength. We were the largest presence as a local council at UK Reef in Leeds in May 2024. And we have worked with Opportunity London to market some key sites in the borough. As a result, we've had 2 large investments coming into Southall through the planning process, and they're still there. But if those do go through, they will deliver over $3 billion of investment in Southall. So, and creating over about, I think, 600 to 700 jobs. So it is something that works. Obviously, Ealing is still one of the top 12 planning authorities in London, Platinum Service. So we've got 100% on major projects and I think 99% on minors. The draft London plan is ready to be examined, as is SIL, our community infrastructure levy. I always miss that bit. Obviously, we've got our 20-minute neighbourhood for Ealing and Hanwell out, and therefore over the year we've done a lot of good work. We've got a new design team with the conservation officer. I know there was a lot of demands for us to have a conservation officer. We now currently have one, and therefore we'll have an in-house expertise when planning applications come in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Thriving Communities, Councillor Hashani.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased that this quarter we achieved a milestone for the Gurnell Leisure Centre project as it's finally received planning permission. Last week we held a community event, information event at Gurnell Grove Community Centre, and I was pleased to meet so many residents who are very excited about the upcoming project. We've also launched the consultation for the Regional Park Master Plan, which has been worked up with community feedback at heart, and we're continuing to develop the plans for this regionally significant piece of work. I'm also really pleased that we've submitted our Borough of Sanctuary application with a final assessment taking place next week, and we very much hope for a positive outcome. The strategy and action plan build on ongoing efforts by the council alongside our VCFS groups, and I'm grateful to all the work of the officers in driving forward the plan to this point. And throughout the quarter, we continue to invest in our local areas through arts, sports and culture, and one example of which is the numerics page, where we've exceeded our £2 million investment targets for playgrounds across the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much to members of the Cabinet. I do have questions from the opposition. As always, I'll go to those in the room first. So, Councillor Glance.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the updates. Can I start a fairer start? YAC, the Youth Adult Centre, that's excellent. I haven't been there. I will definitely go there. I know Bollow Brook obviously very well. The question is it going to produce something? Is it going to have an output like Bollow Brook? Because I think that's a very positive thing for it to have. Either musical or whatever it is, but I think that's a very positive thing. Can I just refer to some of the red missed targets? Page 43, safe and generally affordable homes. Now, it's obviously positive that families in B&B and hotels, that number is coming down. That's good. You've mentioned that they're now looking to go more into hostel type accommodation. And my question is really, are we carefully looking at the maintenance of those hostels to make sure that they are suitable for those families? Page 42, line 6, fly tipping, noted increase, a decrease in collection and an increase in fly tipping. Do we know why? Have we got the right balance between education and enforcement? And simply, are people doing it because they can get away with it? And page 44, if I may, with regard to the number of households again in temporary accommodation, I note the line, there'll be a focus on bringing void properties back into use. Now we know about the council tax increase on empty properties. Are there any other measures which will assist that process that could be very exciting for Ealing residents?
Okay, so thank you very much. Councillor Blacker, do you want to address the question on the Young Adult Centre in Southall?
Yeah, in a way, it's not for me to answer, Chair, because I'm not one of the young people who's using it. It's for the young people to do as they want. One of the great things about the project was we actually asked the young people what they wanted from the centre. They told us. We sent that off to the architects, the designers. They went back to the young people to check that that was what they had asked for, and we kept the project going there. What it does have is it does have fantastic little music studio, and it's got an amazingly excellent kitchen in it with a little garden outside where the young people can grow herbs and things. So I mean, there will be things produced, but it's for the young people to decide what that is, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of it.
Councillor Brett, do you want to tackle issues in respect of hotel and bed and breakfast accommodation, and also the question on temporary accommodation and voids?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair. So just in terms of kind of moving people, there is a process, and it will start with hotel and bed and breakfast just as an emergency thing, and then we have a process of stepping down and going through different types of property in order to then eventually get somebody to have a secure home. Just in terms of maintenance, of course, we always inspect the properties. We've got really positive examples where we've directly leased properties like the Barn Hotel, and those have really positive impacts on the people that end up there, and then we can have those conversations about moving on to a more permanent solution for them. In terms of TA and voids, yes, we've got a programme to look at our regen sites in particular, and see if there are some that installed sites that we can bring back into use, and obviously any outstanding voids that we have in terms of general needs, sheltered accommodation, and TA. We are working really hard with across the different departments in order to bring those back into use, in order to try and help alleviate what is an unprecedented homelessness situation that we've got at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's just worth sort of stressing, as you rightly did, Councillor Brett, Councillor Gallant, I know that we've had this sort of conversation before, not least in this room, but also in the sort of full council chamber. Every council in London, in fact, every council across the country is facing an unprecedented increase in homelessness and therefore temporary accommodation. Ealing finds itself in the same situation that so many other London boroughs do in terms of the demand on our services. We, of course, have come out of a period in which we've had very high inflation rates and interest rates accordingly. I don't wish to rehearse the arguments that we've made before about why that happened. Nevertheless, we've got a bit of a crisis in the private rented sector, as I'm sure you well know. So, officers I know and Councillor Brett have been leading the work to make sure that we can get that under control. Thankfully, we're in a very different situation because of that work than some of our other colleagues in other boroughs that have had to apply for exceptional financial support because of the challenges that they have faced. So I think it's just worth remembering that context in the context of where our numbers are. But I do want to put on record my thanks to the officers for the work to try and deal with what is an incredibly challenging situation. And that's not for us as the council, but it's for the people who find themselves unfortunately homeless and needing our support. Councillor Driscoll, do you want to tackle the issue there of fly tipping?
So, Councillor Gallant, you quite rightly raise enforcement and education. So there will both strands will be taken on board on the work that we've got planned. And the reason why fly tipping, it's multiple, whether it's non-compliance with commercial waste, whether it's direct avoidance of payment of fees and unlicensed waste carriers, or whether it's just a domestic waste being got rid of in the wrong fashion. All of that is used. So we will be doing work to tackle commercial, we will be doing work to tackle domestic residential properties, and we will be strengthening our enforcement, but in line with that in tandem will be education as well. So it will be a multi-pronged approach, and it will be spanning the borough. We'll have some deep set pilot areas that will then roll out in other areas as well. So it's a very considered approach.
Thank you very much. Councillor Malcolm.
Thank you. Looking at the 20 KPIs that are 20% of the KPIs that are red, the dirty streets and fly tipping, you've mentioned some aspects of it. Additional resourcing might be useful in the short term, but why will we be slow to react to this when the incidents increased? My next set of question relates to temporary accommodation. In the budget debate, we did discuss an amendment which Sutton Council dealt with, where that would have helped reduce the demand in this area later in the year. Will you reconsider that proposal to hire a member of staff to actively help that alongside all of the other measures that you're trying to do on this area? And then lastly, I've got a couple of questions relating to emergency repairs and non-emergency repairs. These targets are still very high. I've read the comment about another IT issue. If this is true, it does not really explain why the performance has been so poor for many years. So why is that? And then lastly, where do you expect these two metrics to sit in 3 months' time?
So I think first of all, again, I just sort of like direct sort of members to remember the purpose of cabinet reports and to remember the purpose of questions at cabinet. I don't accept the characterisation that anybody was slow to act. That's a sort of a statement of that's a subjective statement. That isn't an objective statement according to what we have in front of us. Councillor, just I'm very happy for you to come in on that question, but I think we just need to remember that what the purpose of this meeting is. And again, on that second question, that is a question that was put to full council. Full council has discussed that issue. We're not going to revisit it at this meeting. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you. It's worth noting that in terms of cleanliness, quite a number of the indicators are green on target, and even the cleanliness of streets for litter is fractionally below target at an amber. So I think that those need to be recognised as achieving and just fractionally below. Fly tipping is a concern. There was deployment of additional resources by GEL to address that, but it's an ongoing issue. It's not just Ealing based. There's an uptick in fly tipping across London and nationally. We are using our enforcement powers and FPNs. We are one of the highest boroughs to issue FPNs in proportion to fly tipping in both in London and in England. So that work is active and ongoing, but it's a significant issue to address. And as I explained to Councillor Gallant, we've got a programme in place that will be addressing that very, very shortly.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Brett on emergency repairs.
Yeah, so obviously on emergency repairs, there have been some issues in the past. However, we have implemented a different kind of approach. We've got new heads of service in that area, and we should start to see a significant decrease in how long it takes, and increase in positive service. Thank you.
Councillor Donnelly, you might want to cover, I think there was an issue, or I'm right in saying that there was an issue actually of the way in which some of those issues have been coded in the context of a contractor. So my understanding is actually the figures that are presented in the end of year report actually aren't validated numbers, and I think our position, the outrun position, invariably has us in a better position.
Yeah, so that's correct. So there were some, basically it was data and incorrect inputting, and that has now been kind of rectified. So our new report will basically attest to this. Thanks.
And I think we'll get to see that, won't we, Q1 of next year. So hopefully we'll see some sort of shift in that performance. There aren't any other indications, and as I say, I'm not revisiting a sort of political knockabout that we usually have in the council chamber and doing that in cabinet. So on that basis, are we content to note the recommendations that are in the cabinet report, and are we happy to approve them? Thank you very much. So we now go to the determination of the SEN statutory proposals for prescribed alterations to maintain schools and capital approvals, and that is in the name of Councillor Blacker.
Thank you, Chair. As the title suggests, there's quite a few things in this report, so I'd ask Cabinet just to be clear what is in there. So we agreed towards the end of last year to consult on a number of proposals, and this is the outcome and final proposals for decision. That is the closure of 2 hearing impairment units, one in one of our own schools, which I'd ask you to agree, one at an academy trust school, which I'd ask you to note because the trust are progressing that themselves, but we need to note it. Similarly, agree the establishment of 30 place SRP at Northolt, which is our own, but again, note that ARC are progressing a similar scheme at one of their schools, and some associated capital changes, as well as variations to the high priority condition works as part of the public sector decarbonisation scheme. So a few things there, but I'm sure I can answer any questions colleagues may have.
And I believe Councillor Gallant does have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, with regard to the closure of the Gifford Primary School and Dormerswell High School hearing impaired units. Now we can read that the need is reducing, and therefore it's hard to justify the cost of maintaining them. But it is the mitigation is that we'll be relying on other boroughs, and the question is whether other boroughs have got the same kind of plans, and we could end up with no provision at all.
Councillor Blacker.
Yeah, so planning is done on a regional basis. other boroughs do have the spaces, and we do talk to them on a regular basis. As and when we need to commission places and make placements, we do so. So we wouldn't be proposing it if we didn't think this would be a viable solution for the young people in our borough.
And I think the point being, of course, is that, you know, of the very small cohort of people who need the additional support secured for them in their EHCP, you know, young people are in mainstream education, and actually, you know, we all know that, don't we, from much of the evidence that we have available to us, that is the right place for young people, not to be anywhere other than amongst their sort of fellow cohorts. And, you know, if we should experience a fundamental shift in the pattern of EHCP requirements in the borough, of course, we'll change the provision. But for now, I think we're in a very positive position. That means we get the best possible education outcomes for young people with additional needs. So I don't believe there were any other indications to speak or ask questions, which in that case, if I could ask Cabinet members to review the recommendations and ask that they're agreed. The extension to the MRF services contract, that's Councillor Driscoll.
Right. So this continues the provision for essential support work that we need to make sure we can manage our recycled materials. We had the decision to go for a 4-month or a 1-year contract. The longer contract was chosen because this would allow a contract that would be better and more fit for purpose. There's an awful lot of change happening in the waste and recycling field, with extended producer responsibility, deposit return scheme, simpler recycling, a huge amount of legislative change and opportunities, I must say, as well. So having an extension for a longer period of time, this gives us a better understanding of what the new landscape will be in recycling and what our duties will be and how we need to research that and make it fit for purpose going forward. Hence why we've got this longer extension. And we will be working in conjunction with West London Waste and other authorities to make sure that we have a systems approach for the region, to make sure that we've got a coherent approach in a wider area as well.
Thank you very much. There is a question from Councillor Malcolm.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, in the context of this decision and the legislation referred to, how does the borough plan to reduce contamination in recycling, especially how will this be done in flats and communal bins like HMOs where it's more tricky, and how confident is the council being able to expand mixed recycling across the borough when it struggles to provide similar services to blocks of flats already or flats above shops?
Again, the nature of the report deals with the contracts to allocate or to transfer collected materials. I think that's the issue that's on the table. I think, you know, they are important questions about how the council manages its refuse collection. But it's, you know, again, it's just the relevance to the paper that's on the table. We could spend probably a good hour discussing methodologies of collection and segregation and contamination. But I'm just conscious that that's not what this paper covers. But I mean, Councillor Driscoll, do you want to speak to it briefly?
Yeah, I can add to that. So we've got a long-standing work with food recycling. Food recycling is really important, and contamination and removing contamination is also really important. So we do have a really strong track record in West London Waste region for rolling out new areas for food recycling and also going back to areas as well. And we've been working with West London Waste as part of our food recycling work to revisit areas. This is not new work. The contamination is an issue. It will be part of our work going forward, which isn't included in this report, but that will be picked up as part of our EPR and future work to meet the simpler recycling standards going forward. It will definitely be there.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or points that anybody would like to make? If not, if I could ask that the recommendations in the report are agreed. Housing, heating, and domestic and commercial, I believe that is Councillor Brett.
Yeah, so this is quite straightforward. It's an extension of our current contract to allow continuity of service before we go out for a wider procurement process later on down the line.
There we go. I don't have any requests to speak, but I do believe it's a fairly straightforward document. So unless there are any other comments or questions from the Cabinet, are we content to agree the recommendations in the reports? We now go to the South Acton Regeneration Programme, Phase 7.4 and 7.5 commencement. Councillor Manro.
Thank you, Chair. So these two phases will create 192 homes, 69 London affordable rent, 17 shared ownership, and 106 open market value. This asks Cabinet to approve the ability for us to compulsory purchase and give vacant possession to our partners to actually build out these phases. In total, on the South Acton estate, we've had 1,924 homes have been delivered or are on site, of which 50% are affordable. So this report indicates how we will handle moving people out. They will have a right to return, or they will have a right to move to another alternative location on the same estate, or to move to a different property. So, and they will be given disruption payments and moving payments. So it really lays out very clearly that we will handle, the tenants in a proper way. But as people are aware, sometimes you get one or two odd tenants that don't want to move. That causes us problems. So we need the CPO powers to manage that process and still make sure they get compensated properly and clearly. So this is what the report's outlining. So we agree that we're moving forward in seeking vacant possession through the processes. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Glance, you have a question.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's actually, this is an area I know very well, and I have a particular case in mind about one of the buildings that's cited here. It's about maintenance up to the point of demolition, up to the point where people are moved out. What plans are there to continue maintaining the blocks up to that point? Because some of them are in a difficult place at the moment.
Yeah, the simple answer is that we will continue to maintain them, and we will continue to maintain them as in line with our statutory responsibilities and our ethical responsibilities as a good landlord. That is what will continue to happen. Anything to add on to that? Yeah, no, don't worry. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other points or questions? The only thing I'll add is, this isn't a positive next step in the South Acton Regeneration Master Plan. When the previous administration, and by that I mean in 2010, we inherited a regeneration plan that for South Acton quite literally had a reduction in social homes, and it was a story of gentrification, whereby the previous administration, 2026 to 2010, was quite literally demolishing a council estate and moving people out of South Acton who'd lived their whole lives there. And I'm actually very proud of the work that the team have done over the last 15 years to change the fortunes of the South Acton estate to make sure that we're delivering a net increase in social homes and genuinely affordable homes. It's been significant, and it carries on, and there is still so much more to do. We still have some terrible quality places that we need to resolve, but it's absolutely right, as Councillor Manro sets out, that all of that is cocooned in the cast iron guarantees that we give to residents about their rights to return and the continuation of their tenancies where there are tenants, and of course the fair deals that we offer to leaseholders in those scenarios. So, I really do commend the work and hope that we can continue to give South Acton a bright future that it deserves. So, our Cabinet members happy to agree the recommendations in the report. Thank you very much. The West London Strategic Employment Support Contract, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. This is an update to West London Alliance activity that we talked about previously. The Shaw Trust was awarded employment support contract work in January, but in parallel with those discussions, the new government has introduced its Get Britain Back working paper, and there is funding associated with that regarding trailblazing activities for particularly those who've been inactive and the young. And we wish to, but the best way to handle the possibility of gaining funding on this is to move this stream into the existing contract. Because of the size of the potential funding involved, up to £50 million, it needs to come through Cabinet, and I would strongly encourage colleagues to agree.
Yeah, and as ever, given that this is a West London Alliance report, it comes through the London Borough of Ealing as the host agency, but of course it wouldn't come to Cabinet without having the unanimous consent of the West London Authority boroughs. So it's cross-party and supported by all. So hopefully with that bit of information, I'm sure we can all unanimously accept the recommendations in the report. Thank you very much. So the date of the next meeting, therefore, is Wednesday, the 16th of April, and that concludes the meeting of the Cabinet. Thank you.